You ever have one of those moments where your wife says something that sounds like freedom but feels like a trap? Yeah, mine said, do whatever you want. Which, sounds great, but every husband in this room just got nervous. Because when your wife says, do whatever you want, what she actually means is, I dare you. And if you do it, you're not brave, you're unemployed. See, marriage is like a motivational boot camp where you don't even know you signed up. Every day you learn something new, mostly about how wrong you are. You learn that communication means guessing what she meant, apologizing for what she didn't say, and remembering something you didn't do yet. But here's the beautiful part. Marriage teaches you humility. You start to realize it's not about winning arguments. It's about learning patience. It's about realizing sometimes peace is more powerful than being right. And sometimes, yes, honey is the smartest motivational quote you'll ever say. So when she says, do whatever you want, that's not defeat, that's a test of character. That's life's way of saying, how wise are you really? And that's when you realize real strength isn't doing whatever you want. It's knowing when not to do whatever you want. That's the sentence that makes a husband sweat without even moving. You hear it, and suddenly your confidence evaporates like ice cream on a hot day. You think, okay, freedom, this is my moment. And then you notice the way she's looking at you, like she's waiting. Waiting for what? You have no idea. Suddenly, every decision becomes a high-stakes gamble. Should I grab the last slice of pizza? Should I wash the dishes first? Should I sit or stand? All choices now feel like life or death. You start remembering every tiny mistake you've ever made in your marriage, some from years ago, and they all flash before your eyes like a horror movie montage. You realize that do whatever you want doesn't mean whatever you want. It means whatever you do better be brilliant or you're doomed. You practice this silent internal negotiation. If I do this, maybe she'll be happy, but maybe she'll tell me she hates it. And by the time you make a decision, you feel like you've run a marathon you didn't train for, and all you did was pick a snack. And somehow, the right choice always seems like the wrong one. Confidence is a funny thing. You can walk into a room feeling like a hero, like you've got it all figured out. And then your wife raises one eyebrow, just one. Suddenly, every decision you made that morning feels like a crime. You start second guessing yourself on things you were absolutely sure about. Did I lock the door? Did I leave the stove on? Did I somehow insult her 3 months ago without realizing it? That eyebrow doesn't just question your choices, it questions your entire existence. You think, I was confident 5 seconds ago, where did it go? And the scariest part is, she doesn't even have to say anything. That single perfectly arched eyebrow speaks volumes. It's like Morse code for, you better rethink your life right now. You try to smile, you try to explain yourself, but nothing works. Every joke feels wrong, every comment feels stupid. You feel like you're auditioning for a role in a play you didn't know existed. And by the time she finally relaxes, you realize you've spent the last 5 minutes mentally rewriting your entire childhood. Just to make sure you didn't mess anything up, silent judgment is an art form most husbands never truly master. You walk into a room thinking you're fine, and then you feel it, a vibe. It's not in her words, it's in her eyes, the slight tilt of her head, the way she crosses her arms, just so. That's when you realize she's judging you, and silently, which is far worse. Because if she tells you, you could at least defend yourself. But silent judgment is like being in a room with an invisible critic who knows every bad decision you've ever made. You start analyzing everything. Did I fold the laundry right? Did I remember to take out the trash without being reminded? Did I forget to say thank you for something she bought last month? And the worst part is, no matter what you do, it never seems enough. You try small victories, like smiling, nodding, maybe pretending you know what you're doing, but the silent judgment doesn't blink. It's patient, like a cat waiting for you to fail, and every tiny action you take, every word you say is being quietly graded, scored, and filed away for future reference. Usually for something that hasn't even happened yet, being right is one of the most dangerous things a husband can experience. You make a point in an argument, you have all the facts lined up, you're confident, and you feel like a genius. For a moment, you're untouchable. You even start thinking, maybe this is what being a responsible adult feels like. But then bedtime comes. That's when the real consequences start. Because the victory of being right doesn't matter when you're lying in bed next to someone who's quietly remembering every small thing you did wrong today and last week, and maybe even last year. The argument might be over, but the silent resentment lingers. Suddenly, being right feels like you just scored a touchdown in a stadium that's empty, while everyone you love is shaking their head at you. You think, I'm right, so everything's fine, but bedtime doesn't care about logic. It only cares about peace, comfort, and the subtle reminder that marriage isn't about winning. It's about surviving the night without accidentally saying something that will make you sleep on the couch. Some arguments, you walk into thinking you might win, and some you know the moment she opens her mouth that you've already lost. But even in those hopeless cases, there's a lesson to be learned: patience. You sit there nodding, smiling, saying, yeah, I guess you're right, while inside your brain is trying to write a rebuttal that would never see the light of day. The weird thing is, patience doesn't feel like winning. It feels like survival. You start to notice the little things: taking a deep breath before answering, listening without interrupting, even pretending to be thoughtful while secretly planning your next snack. And somehow, over time, you realize that losing gracefully is more satisfying than winning with a lecture. You learn that a soft voice and a calm nod can diffuse tension faster than facts or logic ever could. You start seeing that patience as its own kind of power, a quiet strength that doesn't need applause. And while you may never get a trophy for losing that argument, you walk away with something better: a little peace, a little sanity, and maybe the understanding that some battles aren't worth fighting. Even when you're right, humor is the secret weapon in marriage that nobody really talks about. You can argue, miscommunicate, forget birthdays, or accidentally leave the toilet seat up, and somehow a well-timed joke can save the day. It's like a shield that protects you from taking yourself too seriously. For example, when my wife told me I was overreacting about something completely reasonable, instead of arguing, I just said, "You're probably right as usual," with a little grin, and suddenly the tension disappeared. Humor doesn't fix everything, but it makes the chaos survivable. It's the difference between a long, silent car ride full of passive, aggressive glares and a ride where you both laugh so hard you almost crash. You start realizing that being funny isn't about making her laugh all the time. It's about reminding yourself that neither of you is perfect, and that's okay. Humor turns the little disasters, the burnt dinners, the forgotten errands, the awkward conversations into stories you'll eventually tell your friends and laugh about. And that laughter builds patience, understanding, and sometimes even forgiveness, because when both of you are laughing, even quietly, it's hard to stay angry. For long, marriage is basically an emotional intelligence boot camp disguised as love and companionship. You quickly learn that it's not about winning arguments. It's about reading feelings you didn't even know existed. One minute you think you're fine, the next minute you're navigating a storm you didn't see coming because your wife's mood changed while you were brushing your teeth. You start to notice tiny cues: the tone of her voice, the slight roll of her eyes, the way she sighs when she thinks you're not paying attention. And you realize these small signals carry more weight than any logic or reason you could offer. You develop patience, empathy, and a sixth sense for avoiding unnecessary conflict, which suddenly makes you feel like a highly trained spy, but your mission is just surviving the grocery run without making a joke at the wrong time. Marriage teaches you that listening is more powerful than speaking, that acknowledgement matters more than correction, and that sometimes the right response isn't about being clever, it's about understanding. And slowly, you start realizing that emotional intelligence isn't just a skill you learn from books. It's a skill you earn one awkward, funny, and slightly terrifying day at a time. There's a simple phrase that has more power in a marriage than any motivational book, any career advice, or any logical argument. That phrase is, Yes, honey. You say it at the right moment, and suddenly, the world feels calmer, the sun shines brighter, and your week is safe. It doesn't even matter if you actually agree with what she said. You could think she's totally wrong about the paint color, the grocery list, or the way to load the dishwasher. But yes, honey acts like a magic reset button. It diffuses tension, creates temporary peace, and reminds you that some battles aren't worth fighting. You start to notice that timing is everything. You can't wait until the argument escalates. It has to be said early, before the silent judgment kicks in. Sometimes you even add a little smile or a nod to reinforce the message, and suddenly you're a hero. The funny thing is, the more you say it, the more you realize that marriage isn't really about winning or losing. It's about finding small ways to coexist, survive, and occasionally laugh about the fact that a simple 3-word sentence can literally change your entire week in marriage. Mistakes are inevitable. You spill coffee, forget an anniversary, or accidentally use the wrong laundry detergent, and the situation could either explode into tension or dissolve into laughter. The trick, I've learned, is leaning toward humor. If you can laugh at yourself before she points out the obvious, you gain a small victory. You might say, well, at least the cat appreciates my creative laundry skills. Or, I was just testing if our coffee table could survive gravity. Suddenly, what could have been an argument becomes a story you'll retell for years, usually with added exaggeration to make it even funnier. Mistakes in marriage are like comedy material. You just have to frame them correctly. And the more you laugh at yourself, the less power your missteps have over the mood of the day. You realize that perfection isn't the goal. Survival, patience, and shared laughter are. Sometimes the smallest screw up can become the funniest memory if you approach it with the right mindset. And over time, you start seeing that marriage isn't just about getting things right. It's about keeping the mood light enough that even your mistakes feel like part of the adventure. Marriage teaches you that sometimes the strongest move isn't being right. It's letting it go. Pride feels good in the moment. You win the argument, you prove your point, you feel like a genius, and then you go to bed alone on your side of the mattress. Choosing peace over pride is like quietly signing a secret victory for your relationship. It doesn't get applause, it doesn't come with a medal, but it saves arguments, dinners, and sometimes even entire weekends. You start noticing little moments where saying, it's fine, or you're right, feels like surrender, but in reality, it's the smartest thing you could do. It's like saying, I'll trade this small point for a week of sanity, laughter, and maybe even dessert later. Over time, you realize that being right rarely matters as much as being connected. Peace is underrated, it's subtle, quiet, and doesn't require a fight. And the weirdest part is, the more you practice it, the easier it gets. You start understanding that choosing calm over ego doesn't make you weak, it makes you clever. Because in the end, a happy home is worth more than any argument you could ever win. So, at the end of the day, do whatever you want isn't really about freedom. It's about survival, patience, and learning how to laugh at yourself before anyone else does it for you. Marriage is full of little tests, silent judgments, and awkward moments, and somehow the right answer isn't about being right. It's about keeping the peace, keeping the humor alive, and realizing that sometimes the smartest thing a husband can say is just, yes, honey. And if you survive the week without a major disaster, that's basically winning. Honestly, the funny part is, you spend all this time thinking you're learning about marriage, but really you're just learning about yourself and how creatively you can avoid sleeping on the couch